Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's call. My name is Nick, and as usual, I'm very excited for tonight's call. It's not only a normal Zoom, it's called our IMPiLO Zoom. And for those of you that aren't aware, what is the IMPiLO Zoom? The IMPiLO Zoom is held on the last Thursday of every month. It's something like they have the Wellness Wednesday in the US. We've got the IMPiLO Zoom here in South Africa, and IMPiLO means simply health is wealth. So welcome to the call, everyone. Yolandé, my co-host, as usual. Thank you for agreeing to be my co-host and allowing everybody in. And Yolandé's actually got something to say to everybody about prizes that we're going to give away tonight. So Yolandé, tell everybody before I start, what's the story with the prizes we're giving away today for everybody?
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Yolandé Koupis and I'm from Bloemfontein, Central South Africa, small little town, and we are almost breaking through to spring. So it's actually getting more pleasant at night and during the day. But tonight is such a special Zoom, and my good friend and business partner, Nick Papas, arranged 3 bottles of NONI as prizes for whoever on this Zoom tonight. So 3 lucky winners. And here's the thing. So we decided that whoever puts the best question about NONI, the product, in the question box, I will monitor it, and Brett will choose the 3 best questions. So let's get busy, let's get active, listen to the awesome IMPiLO training tonight presented by Brett and Nick, and let's win. But I'm entering as well, eh?
You can
I'm just saying.
You can enter. So guys, tonight, I'm just going to, before I introduce Brett and get Brett to do his thing, I just want to give you a bit of a bio on Brett, who Brett is in New Age. Brett's a senior director of research at New Age. He's been involved in the scientific research of NONI since 1997. Brett's work was instrumental in the 2003, 2008, and 2010 approvals of NONI juice and NONI leaves as safe novel foods by the European Union. He has also conducted a published research on the efficacy, safety, and biologically active constituents of Tahitian NONI juice and other New Age products. Brett graduated at Brigham Young University and the University of Arizona with degrees in molecular biology and pharmacology, toxicology. He has authored 70 peer-reviewed scientific articles in various medical chemistry and biological science journals, as well as developed and validated more than 24 chemical and biological tests for in-house use by Marinda, and now obviously New Age laboratories, including anti-glycation, antioxidant, and DNA protection tests. He has also given scientific presentations in more than 30 nations. Brett has served as the editor-in-chief for the Journal of Medical Food Plants for 3 years and has served as a scientific reviewer of several other journals. His professional membership has included the American Chemical Society, the International Society of Regulatory Toxicology and Pharmacology, the Western Pharmacology Society, New York Academy of Sciences, and the Institute of Food Technologies. So he's just a little bit cleverer than I am. So guys, Brett, thank you very much for agreeing to be on this call. We are very, very honored. Welcome to Africa. Although we've got the globe on this call, but we excited, especially as Africans, because we're launching NONI for the first time in South Africa and Nigeria in 6 weeks. And what better than to have the best of the best tell us about the product so that we can leave the starting blocks running, know what we're talking about, and go with confidence. So Brett West, welcome to Africa again.
Thank you, Nick. And that introduction, I felt like I was attending my own funeral, you're reading my obituary. So it sounded more impressive you reading it than it looks on paper. but thank you. I'm Brett West. For those who are in Alberta, I'm straight south of you people, but it's a little warmer. I don't know that it's a little warmer or not right now. It's hot everywhere, it seems, but around the globe. But yeah, I've been doing work with NONI for about 25 years now, and actually a little more than 25 years. And I'm happy to share with you some things today. I could actually go for several hours, believe it or not, but I'm not going to torture you that way. We're gonna take maybe about 40 to 50 minutes, and I'll discuss some of the high points of some of the NONI research and things about NONI plant and Tahitian noni juice, if that's okay. So Nick, I guess I should share my screen, right?
You can.
Okay, let me do that. And I'm going to bring you up and minimize this little part here, so we don't need to see ourselves per se. Okay, there we go. So Nick, you can just tell me verbally if you see that picture of a bottle of noni juice.
Picture, I got the picture, 2.5 decades of Tahitian noni juice. Got it?
Great. Okay. All right. So there will be people occasionally coming in and waiting on the waiting room if you want to let them in, if you're still have.
Yeah, I'll do that with you, Yolandé. It's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. So, like I mentioned, we've been doing work on Tahitian noni juice for 2.5 decades. A lot of research. I'd like to share with you briefly my introduction, if that's okay. It might seem a little humorous. I hope it's not, it takes away from the validity of what I'm saying. But when I first learned about noni juice, I heard about it from my wife's sister. This is my connection to the company, the Marinda, that began back in 1996. It's now part of the New Age organization. And she actually came to visit my wife and I down in the University of Arizona in Tucson, and the weather was much warmer there during the winter time than up here in Utah. So she came to visit us, and this company just began, and she was working for them and told us about this funny sounding juice called noni juice that was from French Polynesia, from Tahiti. And she's not a scientist. I love my sister-in-law, family member, wonderful lady, but she's not a scientist, and she got some things mixed up on some of the early information on noni, and was trying to explain it to me. And frankly, my first impression was that this was some kind of witchcraft or voodoo medicine or something. I don't know. So I had to do my own research to kind of sort that all out. But my wife, what happened was my wife actually started drinking Tahitian noni juice, and it helped her recover after the birth of our first child, our oldest child. And so I respect my wife, and I value her opinion. So it kind of opened my heart and mind a little more to this. Well, through certain circumstances, I actually had other plans to do a different kind of research, different kind of work. But through this connection from my sister-in-law, I was able to talk to one of the founders of the company, who was over research, and they had started a research department, and they're interested in me coming and doing work on Tahitian noni juice. And my thought was, okay, I will give it 1 year. I decided it intrigued me, and I'd give it 1 year of my time. And I could do that because in research, you're trying to find out something, that's why it's called research. And the answer could be, yes, this is good, or no, there's nothing to it. So I would do this for 1 year, and if nothing panned out, then I would go back to my original plans. Well, that was 25 years ago. So you imagine I found a lot of stuff since then that substantiate and demonstrate the benefits of Tahitian noni juice. And I hope that comes through clearly when I explain to you some of the research here. So fruits and vegetables, everybody knows they're good for you, and your mother or your grandmother told you, make sure you eat your vegetables. There's a reason for that. I'm going to explain a little later what makes noni unique, because it does have all those basic properties of fruits and vegetables, but it has something more actually than common fruits and vegetables. And we were able to actually demonstrate that in some of our clinical trials, where we made placebos that had healthy fruits and healthy fruit juices in them to compare Tahitian noni juice against. So we could actually control for the effect that's coming from noni to see if there is something special to that. So I'll explain that a little more as well. So over the years, we've, as a group, as a company, and as those that we've supported their research, directly and provided products to and funding to and so forth, and as well as our own internal research, more than 120 peer-reviewed scientific publications. Now, I just want you to know that peer review is the key here. Peer review means that when we submit our research to a scientific journal, there are other scientists that get to review our work and critique it and read our reports. And if it's considered garbage, then they will say, no, we don't recommend this be published. And if it passes muster, then we are allowed to publish it. So this is quality work here that's already gone through a critique by other scientists. Now, noni, so that's what I'm talking about today. And Tahitian noni, that's where we get it, is from, we process our fruit on the island of Tahiti, and it's kind of the center, the hub of the economic and social hub of French Polynesia, which is, you got over 100 islands scattered across the South Pacific. And noni, even not just in French Polynesia, but in other islands throughout the Pacific and other places, it was a very important plant. So there was an expert named Dr. Arthur Whistler. He was associated with the U.S. National Tropical Botanical Garden, and he was also a professor at the University of Hawaii. He studied in his career how the Polynesian people, the people of the Pacific Islands, how they used plants to benefit their life or to survive even. And he wrote books on these topics, and one of them was called Polynesian Herbal Medicine. And he pointed out that Morinda, that's the genus name for Morinda citrifolia, the noni plant. That's the scientific name, Morinda citrifolia. But he said that it was used throughout Polynesia as a medicinal plant, and it was probably the most widely and commonly used medicinal plant prior to the European era. In fact, you see this theme repeated in other experts who studied this plant and other what we call the folk tradition, the folk medicine tradition of the Pacific Islands, that noni was always used in either by itself or in combination with other plants to improve their potency. It was used commonly. So this had a very important place. In fact, it was an important, what we call a canoe plant. Now I show you a picture here of an outrigger canoe, and they would have double hold versions of these where the outrigger would be larger, it'd be just two holes, or one like this. But basically the Polynesian people were their ancestors were great explorers. They were able to sail off from an island out into the expanse where they wouldn't be able to see any islands, and they could very cleverly, look at the ocean currents and look at the nature and everything, that wave patterns and so forth, and get an idea of where islands might be. And they would shove off their boats and head out into just the ocean. And but when they did that, they would cover thousands of miles of ocean, and they would land on islands where they would need to survive, and they'd take things with them so they could survive this journey. And they would plants and foods with them, things that would ensure survival. And noni was one of those, what we call canoe plants. They had limited space on their boats, and they had to only take the most important things. And noni was one of those that they would take, and they would take it. So they would eat the noni fruit to keep their stamina up, and while they're sailing from one island to go find a new one, they would take the plant with them so they could put it in the ground and grow it up on that island. Now, what they would do is they would go from across the Pacific from one end to the other. They would take what they found to be the most potent plant with them on that island. They'd have noni plants growing, and they'd say, the healers would often say, well, this plant here, specific one, seems to be the best. So they would take that with them to the next island. And what they were doing was selecting, through human selection, selecting the best noni. So by the time you get out to the Eastern Pacific, French Polynesia, in these remote areas, you have very, very potent noni. And I'll show you some data to support that in a moment or two here. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of research that's been done, not all of the research, but quite a bit. And it may seem overwhelming, but if you would like to, you can go to this, look at this web address here. And this is a paper that I published. It's a link to paper I published in 2018, which reviews a lot of the human clinical trials involving Tahitian noni juice. And the title of that paper is The Potential Health Benefits of Noni Juice, and a review of human intervention studies. You can either Google that term or go to that address, find this paper, download it, and get a copy. And it'll discuss many of these clinical trials that I will talk about today. Now, this thing has been quite popular. It's been viewed more than 12,000 times so far, and cited by other scientists who are writing on this topic on noni. More than 26 times they've used it in their publications to reference back to this information in this article. So this is quite useful to you. So again, you can go find a copy of this and use this. Now, it may not address your specific question, does noni help with X health condition? But what it does show is that noni has a broad range of health benefits, and that it is very good for the body. And so it likely will have some positive impact on what your concern is, regardless of the lack of data, because of it's helping the body in general with overall health. And just because we don't have data on it doesn't mean it's not going to. We just haven't gotten around to it. Human clinical trials are very expensive, and that's an investment we've made over the years. But you can't do them all because of how expensive they are. So now here's just a summary of some of the things. I'll talk about some of the things found in human clinical trials. I will discuss some of these, but you'll see we did a safety one. That was part of our European Union novel food approval. Antioxidant effects in heavy smokers. I'm going to speak a little bit more in detail on that one because of what it shows. It shows the power, real power of noni and Tahitian noni juice. And protection of DNA. There's some benefits to blood lipids there, and joint benefits for like the neck, joints of the neck we've seen, and osteoarthritis of the hip and knees, and energy, physical endurance benefits that we've seen. Immune is a big one, immune boosting benefits, and so forth. A lot here to get into. So just a summary of some of the things. Now, here's the original European Commission decision of 2003. This is where the European Commission had voted to approve noni juice for sale in the European Union as a safe novel food. And this was all based on research done on Tahitian noni juice. I want to make that clear. There are some other noni products on the market. I've analyzed more than 300 of them over the years. And not all noni is the same, I'll just tell you that. And from a safety and efficacy perspective, they're not all the same. So again, French Polynesia is the best source. It's the most potent, but also how you process the plant, the fruit, and package and so forth. You can change some of the properties of this if you don't do this right. And we spend a lot of time working that out. And again, this approval is all based on our source from French Polynesia and the specific product Tahitian noni juice. But it is safe. In fact, I'll go back to that again, explain that in these studies that we did here, we actually, there is no upper limit. People always ask, how much can you take? And the question and the response I give is, how much do you want to drink? Or how much do you feel you need to drink? I myself will drink at least a half a glass or a glass or more a day. There's no upper, tolerable limit, as we call it. You just treat it like another fruit juice. You can drink that much. It depends on what your body needs, and you can figure that out. And it has a very good safety profile because it's not a drug. I want to make that part clear here. This is not a drug. This is something that provides things, phytonutrients to your body that your body will then use in a way that it needs to. And so you're not going to overdose like you would with a prescription drug with Tahitian noni juice. Okay, and it's something we call has adaptogenic properties, helps the body adapt to the stresses and the things that are troubling it, and whatever's going on around you, whether that's some biological stress or a chemical stress such as pollution. And I will give examples of cigarette smoke in a little bit here, and it gives the body what it needs. So in China, the People's Republic of China. We sell tea noni juice there as well. And we had to go through a long process to get this again approved as a safe, what we call new resource. And they don't use the term novel food, they use the term new resource. So we got noni from French Polynesia in there as a safe new resource. Had to redo all the safety studies again. They wanted to see it done in their laboratories. And then also we applied for approval as a functional food. I mean, a food with a specific function. And the one that we got approval for was immune system benefit or immune system support and boosting. And that involved, again, another set of research that that they identified. Here's the labs we want you to go to, the universities and these organizations. We want you to test according to these methods, you know, and if you pass, then you can get approval. If you don't pass, then good luck. And we wouldn't be selling this in China, actually, if we didn't get the functional food approval based on how we market in there. So we actually did all that testing, and then we got this approval. And here's, if you can read the Chinese characters, you can read what that is, but that's the official certificate that we received. And we have to renew this every 5 years as well. And there's this little symbol on, you see the bottle there. You see two designs I've showed you on the bottle. One is the old classic design, and then there's this newer one. The product inside is the same regardless of that, whether you have the larger picture of the man blowing the shell or the small one. Sometimes people ask that question, and it's the same product, just a different design on the label. And we refer to it sometimes as tea noni juice or tea noni original, depending on the market, or tea noni liquid dietary supplement. All depends on the market, but they're all the same thing. They're all tea noni juice. But that little symbol on the right, on the left there of the bottle is what some people call the blue hat symbol. It's the functional food symbol. It's the special one that's put on the label, on the back label, that people can see and read, and it identifies it as something that will boost the immune system, and that it's gone through the testing and it was approved by the government to make that claim, so that they can understand this is what it's good for. So that's the strength of the effect from tea noni juice on the immune system as recognized through all this testing. Now, I mentioned before that noni has some of the basic properties of fruits, vegetables, you know, that you would expect. You know, there's some vitamins and some, you know, phytonutrients in there, some minerals that are healthy and so forth. But they have some other phytonutrients that are not common. So to help explain this, I show you a picture here, just kind of a rough graphic representation of what the 5 main things are that make up fruit. So you have water. This is why water is the main thing. That's why you can take an orange and squeeze it and you get orange juices. There's a lot of water in there. That's what fruits are known for. Then you have carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are going to be, some of it will be sugar, so it's sweet. Now, noni does not have a lot of sugar. I want to tell you that right away. It's not a really sugary product. Tea noni juice, if you taste sweet in there, it's coming from the grapes and the blueberries, not from the noni. The noni itself has less sugar than a lemon. So, you know, it's not, if you eat noni raw, it's not really going to be a sweet experience. It's going to be more of a tart and otherwise experience. But carbohydrates, some of that is sugar, some of that is fiber, dietary fiber. You know, when you, again, I'll go back to oranges as an example, you know, the pulpy matter inside, you know, the pulp in the orange juice, that's a carbohydrate. Those are dietary fibers. Then you have vitamins. Again, the orange juice example, people are familiar with vitamin C. In fact, noni, believe it or not, has more vitamin C than oranges do when you pick it off the tree. So if you're marooned on an island somewhere and you're worried about getting scurvy or something and you need some vitamin C, you go find a noni tree, you find the noni fruit, pick it off the tree and eat it, you'll get plenty of vitamin C. Now, of course, when vitamin C doesn't maintain long-term at that level in the juice form, but that's not what we're interested in noni for. It's not vitamin C. The minerals are an important thing. The potassium is something that you'll see in a lot of fruits and vegetables. Plants are very good at pulling potassium out of the soils and incorporating them into their makeup. And then when you eat those fruits or vegetables, usually you're getting some potassium. So those are examples of the 4 of the main things. And again, the things that are not classically vitamins you know, they're not a vitamin C or a vitamin A or D or so forth. They are called phytonutrients. Now, phytonutrients, again, are not defined as vitamins, but they are also important for your health, and they can benefit your health. And there's a group in NONI of phytonutrients that are called iridoids. And iridoids are what make NONI. And you can see things called flavonoids in plants. And people are familiar with bioflavonoids and so forth. NONI has those as well. But let me just show you here an example of the iridoids. So you can find flavonoids in all of these fruits here that I've shown in this graph, but iridoids are only found in NONI. You can't find them in apples or oranges or bananas or whatever, you know, grapes and so forth. Whatever plant you're thinking of, common plant, you're not going to find iridoids because they're not present in very many things, in very many fruits and foods. So NONI is unique in that way. And these iridoids are actually what give it its unique power. We've done a lot of work to validate the benefits of these iridoids, and they help impart that, what I mentioned earlier, that adaptogenic property of NONI towards our bodies. Now, let me get a little drink here. Now, NONI from Tahiti and from French Polynesia is the premier source. Remember, I talked about the canoe plants, and as people traveled across the Pacific, they would select the best NONI as they went with them. And this concept is validated with this phytonutrient survey we did, where we collected, this is just showing some of the results. And this, by the way, is published in that journal. I have the reference at the bottom. It's called Phytochemical Analysis, peer-reviewed again. What we did is we collected fruit samples, NONI fruit samples that are growing across the tropics, and then analyzed the main iridoids in there. Now here you'll see AA and DAA. Those are abbreviations for the long chemical names of the main iridoids in NONI fruit. And then we have this total iridoid content, which is that gray bar, the right darker gray bar. You'll see Tahiti is the highest source. Now Tonga is nearby Tahiti, so it makes sense that it would be similar, but it's still lower. And then you go down as you go to other sources. So again, French Polynesia is the premier source because of this effect that has taken over so many hundreds and thousands of years of getting NONI into that area, the best NONI. That would be based on the human experience of which one works the best. Now, in Tahitian noni juice, we actually test each batch to make sure it matches up with what we have seen to be effective in human clinical trials. We test each batch for iridoid content, I should clarify. So here's just a little screenshot from a paper, one of the papers that we had published. I'll talk a little more about this study as well later, but this one involved a clinical trial with heavy cigarette smokers and how drinking Tahitian noni juice protected their DNA from damage from the cigarette smoke. And as part of that trial, we did the phytochemical or phytonutrient analysis of Tahitian noni juice and published this in this journal here, Food Science and Nutrition. This was back in 2013, we published it. And I've converted the total iridoid results for you to show that it averages out to about 15 milligrams per 30 ml serving. And we test this over time. And each time we make a batch, we test it. And if it doesn't pass, we don't release it. Now, fortunately, we haven't had that problem because we've gotten very good at sourcing our noni, and we have the right formula, and we have a lot of quality control in place. But we still test. And I show you results here for some lots that were made towards the end of 2021. And you'll see the results here. These would be, I should update this and put in some more recent ones, but this is what we see essentially. We either have those 15 milligrams or more iridoids per 30 ml serving. Sometimes we have a 60 ml serving. So we, of course it'd be double. It would be 30 milligrams of iridoids per 60 ml. You can do the math there, but the point being is we've done all this testing earlier in clinical trials. We know what's in there, what should be in there, and we keep track of that with each batch, and we make sure it's consistent and that the customer always gets what has been shown to be effective. Another thing about these iridoids is that, you know, some of these, I mentioned flavonoids, some of the flavonoids in other fruits, they, when you pick it fresh, kind of like vitamin C, you know, it's high, but then over time, those may degrade. They're not stable. They're not going to last a long time. The iridoids, on the other hand, do. I've tested bottles 9 years old. So we've been selling Tisha Noni juice for 26 years. And I've got some very old bottles, and we tested them. And that 9-year-old bottle had only a 10% decrease in total iridoid content after 9 years. And I've done more recent analyses of, you know, I did a larger study with 4-year-old bottles of Tisha Noni juice, and we didn't see any decline at that point in the total iridoid content. So very stable. We didn't design it that way. That's just how the creator made it. And we got lucky in picking Noni as the product we produce, and we were able to find this out. But again, iridoids, they're the way the Noni fruit makes them and stores them, they're very stable. And then, you know, you have to drink it and digest it, and then your body will take it in the format that it needs. And unlike sometimes, for instance, I mentioned back here, I show a graph here. Look at this plant, third from the left, called acai. It's from Brazil. There's a lot. It's been pretty popular. A lot of people have interest in this. You know, when you pick it off the tree, the flavonoid contents, these things called anthocyanins, a specific group of them, they're pretty high. But once you pick that fruit and you turn it into a juice or a puree to use in a commercial product, after a few weeks, it's already declined significantly. And to put it in a bottle and then ship it around the world and then put a 2-year shelf life on it, like we do with Tisha Noni juice, that acai the main phytonutrients in there will be mostly gone. And so that's not a problem that we have with Noni. Again, we didn't design it that way. That's just how it happens in nature. And we're very fortunate to know that about it. And we're also very fortunate that iridoids are these major health benefiting phytonutrients in Noni. So some of the studies here that I'm talking about in that review paper I showed you earlier, I'll just give you some brief descriptions of them. And now there are various sizes of studies that we've done. Some what we call more pilot studies, where you have a couple dozen people, like in this case here, and then other ones where we've had, you know, a few hundred people. And then another study I'll show you where there's almost 4,000 people that we did in Japan. But this one was done at TNJ Medical University. This was part of that approval process in China. There were a lot of studies we did, but this was just one of them. All 12 people. These were healthy adults. They weren't sick. There were nothing wrong with them. We had them drink Tisha Noni juice for 2 months, and then drew blood before the study and after the study to see and measure markers of immune system function. What we found is that there was about a 30% increase in the two main parts of the immune system, one called the innate immune system and the other one, the adaptive immune system. The innate is the one that's ready to protect your body right away. And the adaptive part, the adaptive immune system, is the one that responds and has memory, such as like when you have a vaccination, you know, it activates the adaptive immune system is involved there, and you become immunized and you can respond better later on. Well, Tisha Noni juice helped increase the activity of those two parts of the immune system by 30%. It also reduced oxidative stress in the body by 19%. Again, these people weren't sick, but you may wonder, where does the oxidative stress come from? Well, if you live in a city, you're always breathing in polluted air, and there's a source of oxidative stress, just one example. Now, here is a study that was done at Lagos, at the University of Lagos College of Medicine. This is one of the earlier trials that validated the benefit of Tisha Noni juice and the Noni fruit. Noni fruit, one of the traditional uses, regardless of where it was grown, it was always used to help with pain and inflammation. And this study here, they did a 90-person trial, and this one's published again in a peer-reviewed journal, and it's a pretty cool study. What they did is they took a 30 ml serving of Tisha Noni juice and had people drink it who had something called cervical spondylosis, which is kind of like arthritis of the neck, the joints of the neck, of the upper part of the neck, above the shoulders, below the skull. And these people had stiffness. They could only move very limitedly and they did it with pain, and that goes in all directions, whether they went side to side or just turning their head this way or up and down. And what they did is they measured how far they could move the night before. And then they said, okay, one group drink tisha noni juice, another group received the standard treatment, and then another group will combine the two together, tisha noni juice and the standard therapy. And they found that the tisha noni juice was as effective as the standard therapy was, just the 30 ml serving. And then when you combine them together, you got even better benefits. So this was one of those that validated that traditional use. Then this was followed up later on by a study that we did at the University of Illinois at Chicago, College of Medicine there, and then something called a hospital called the Swedish American Hospital. America is a country of immigrants, so sometimes the places are named after groups of immigrants that started a hospital or whatever organization they began in this area. They were Swedish immigrants who decided to invest in a hospital many, many years ago, and it became associated with this University of Illinois system as well. So in this study, they identified 82 osteoarthritis patients. They had osteoarthritis of the hip or knee, and they drank 90 milliliters of tisha noni juice per day. And what they saw, just as in the study at the University of Lagos, was that there was improvement in mobility, a reduction in pain, and they also had improvement of what we call quality of life factors, which was things that measure mood, how positive they're feeling or how down they're feeling, all these other things that you can't measure with a blood test. And then the clinical laboratory tests, which measure, kidney function, liver function, all these safety parameters, they were great. There's no problem there, and it showed a large margin of safety. Speaking of safety, this is one that we did a trial we did with the European Union approval of noni juice. This was done in the United Kingdom, and published it we decided to publish this in something called Pacific Health Dialogue. It's a public health research journal associated with an organization across the Pacific Islands. And we thought it was appropriate to do so because this was the source of the noni. But in this study, we had 96 people. It was a double-blind, placebo-controlled, 1-month trial. We had people drinking as much as 3/4 of a bottle per day, 750 milliliters per day, a lot of tisha noni juice per day. And in this study, we measured everything you could think of. We did EKGs of the heart. We, of course, looked for all adverse events or any signs, symptoms of any, not feeling well. Blood draw, measured everything, complete physical, heart rate, blood pressure, everything you could think of. And this was absolutely safe. So when you ask what is our top dose that we've ever studied, it's 750 milliliters a bottle. 750 milliliters per day in this official study. Now, I've known people who've drank more than this, including myself, on some days, and not had any problems. So there's a lot more that you can drink that you can drink safely than you probably will drink. Now, we had an opportunity to do this interesting set of studies at the University of Illinois College of Medicine. And the first one was we were looking at antioxidant effects in heavy smokers. These are people who smoked 19 or more cigarettes per day, a pack of cigarettes per day, for at least a year before. So heavy smokers with a long-term habit. And the reason we did this is we wanted to see what can tisha noni juice really do? Is it as good as an apple juice or a grape juice or an orange juice or any other fruit juice or blueberry juice or acai juice, or is it better? So we had tisha noni juice, and then we created a placebo that had all the grape and blueberry juice in there. And then we enrolled these heavy smokers in this study. And what we did is we drew blood from them. And I'll give you the explanation for all these smoker studies, but basically they either drank tisha noni juice or they drank the placebo. At the beginning of the study, we drew blood and we did a bunch of measurements. And then at the end of the study, after 1 month of drinking tisha noni juice or the placebo, We drew blood again. Now they continued to smoke the whole time. So this is a really challenging environment. Smoking causes a lot of, most of you know this, it's hard on the body and it causes a lot of oxidative stress. There's a lot of chemicals that you're breathing in that cause all kinds of damage, and it damages the DNA. And it's one of the reasons why the smoking is associated with cancer, because of that DNA damage, but it also impacts function of the cells of the body, where the DNA, is the central down in the nucleus of the cell. That's kind of those set of instructions on how to function properly is in the DNA. So you want to keep that intact. So what we did in this study, for this part here, we enrolled 285 people, again, double blind, so they don't know if they're getting the placebo or TNJ juice. It's a 1-month trial. And we found that as little as 30 milliliters of TNJ juice a day lowered free radical levels in the blood significantly. Whereas the placebo, the healthy fruit juices, so grapes and blueberries, they have a lot of good flavonoids in there, a lot of things that are healthy for you. These, what we call the pigment compounds in there as well, that have all these benefits that are great antioxidant benefits. But guess what? They weren't strong enough to counter that constant barrage of cigarette smoke every day. But the noni was strong enough, and it helped lower those free radical levels. We did another one where we actually drew the blood, isolated the white blood cells. Those are cells of the immune system, and then looked at the DNA and looked for the amount of DNA damage that occurred in them. And we looked at 2 different types. So in this study, we looked at what was called the oxidative stress related DNA adducts. So remember, the cigarette smoke is causing this oxidative stress in the body. You get these free radicals, and they interact with molecules in the body that then become toxic themselves, basically, and attack the DNA and attach themselves and damage it in a certain way. This study had 245 people, same method as I described before. What we found is that it also reduced these oxidative stress related DNA adducts in heavy smokers. And this is quite significant as well. Cut these things about in half, reducing them. And this is while they were still smoking. So imagine if you stopped smoking, then you took it, and then you'd see even better results. Now, we did another one where we study again with smokers, and this time it's what we call the aromatic DNA adducts. And this would measure actually the direct chemicals from the smoke binding and attacking the DNA, not the oxidative stress products downstream kind of reaction. This one is which ones directly attack the DNA. And this one had 203 people, and we found that 30 milliliters lowered that DNA damage again by half. So the placebo did not have an effect. So what this taught us is that yes, TNJ juice can really get the job done under severe conditions. And 2 is that TNJ juice has something more than these other common fruit juices, and that's the noni. And what is it different about noni? Noni has iridoids, these other ones do not. Now, just to follow this up, I didn't put this in this presentation, but I published it later in a journal. But what I did is I actually, we isolated the iridoids from the noni, purified them. And then I conducted, I mentioned earlier in the introduction that I studied toxicology. So I can actually, one of the things I learned was to assess things that might damage DNA or are carcinogens. So I did an experiment where I took cells and I exposed them to a carcinogen, and then I measured the amount of DNA damage that occurred. And this carcinogen is well known to cause a lot of DNA damage, so it was predictable. And then I repeated the experiment, but first I exposed the cells, or I let the cells kind of soak up and absorb the iridoids from noni. And then I exposed them to carcinogen. And it reduced the amount of DNA damage that occurred by 99%, over 99%, almost complete protection in this cell Petri dish study. Test tube study. But what it showed us is that the iridoids do have that potential to do what we were seeing in this human clinical trial. So we connected those together. Now, another thing that happens in heavy smokers is that their cholesterol levels go up, triglycerides go up, C-reactive protein, which is a marker of systemic inflammation throughout the body, increases. So as expected, we saw benefits in the free radicals and protecting DNA. And again, with the smokers, this was 132 people in this one. We saw declines in cholesterol and triglycerides above elevated levels. Now, I want you to understand that that was the biggest effects we saw were those who had the most elevated cholesterol and triglycerides and so forth. They brought them down to the normal range. Those who would have been already at normal range, because there were a few of them, they didn't see a big change because Tisha noni juice is not a drug. It's giving the body what it needs to help control the problems. And if this had been like for instance, a statin drug, we gave everybody, you'd see everybody some decline, even if you're at a healthy range. And I give you too much, then it'll push you too low because you got to have a little bit, right? For normal functioning, there's a healthy range for these things. Tisha noni juice did not push anybody out of the normal range. So it's an adaptogenic property for those of you who are familiar with that term, but again, helps the body adapt. Now there are studies, of course, we did with athletes. And I'm checking my time here because I think we're going pretty late here. Let me know how much time I got, Nick. So if we got a little bit longer.
You go, mate, you go.
Okay, good. So we did, remember I mentioned noni juice or noni fruit was used by these people as a canoe plant. One of the uses was not only for their health later on when they landed on the island, but to help keep up their stamina. In fact, there was a Smithsonian Institute publication, out of Washington, D.C. that recorded lots of things about the Pacific Islands. And one of those mentioned the use of noni fruit by people basically to help them keep their energy levels up and stay alert while they're on long fishing trips and voyages between islands. So that was a traditional use. We started seeing professional athletes in the United States using Tisha noni juice, and like in the National Basketball Association, the NBA, said it really helped them. And so we decided to do some studies, and we had this opportunity quite a while ago to do some work at some sports medicine institutes. We did this in Russia. Done this in Chile. We've done it in Austria and in Germany. Just going to show a couple of results here. Now, the reason we do it in all these different countries is we have a pretty worldwide, large market around the world of Tisha noni juice consumers. So we'll do some of this work in these different countries. In this case, we had 40 athletes. They were runners. They were kind of the semi-professional types, very competitive. And what we found is that when we put them we had them drink Tisha noni juice or a blackberry juice placebo. Again, another healthy fruit juice. But we had them start out doing a time to fatigue test, basically put them on a treadmill, and every minute the resistance on this treadmill increases. And then, so it gets harder every minute you run, and time them, and just have them run until they're exhausted and can't run anymore. And then have them drink Tisha noni juice or this placebo for 3 weeks, and then repeat that. And we found that their endurance increased by 21%. Then we drew blood and measured the oxidative stress levels in the blood. And we saw that the antioxidant activity had increased by 25%. So there's some measurements of the body's ability there's some natural antioxidant systems in the body. We saw that increase by 25%, whereas the placebo didn't have any benefit under these test conditions. Now, there was another study done at University of Port Harcourt. So again, we're in Nigeria. There's been a couple groups in Nigeria that have done work on Tisha noni juice. And so the first one was with joint health and mobility. And this one was again with exercise. They did this with 60 people, same test, same results. Tisha noni juice increased endurance. But what they added this time is they measured serum creatine kinase. And it's a marker for muscle damage. So what this group did to add to the knowledge base here is that they found that actually Tisha noni juice helps protect the muscle from damage. And that's why these athletes were seeing such a benefit, these professional athletes, because they could recover faster after strenuous competition and so forth. And so, again, this traditional benefit being validated here. Now in Chile, we did some research with cyclists. And in this case, we had a placebo again, a TNJ group, and then a reference group who didn't get either one, TNJ or placebo, just kind of a background reference group. And we measured what's called VO2 max, and that's basically the measurement of the maximum oxygen uptake and your muscle's ability to use that. So it's basically a measure of fitness. So what we saw is that with 2 weeks of Tisha noni juice, supplementation, that their VO2 max increased significantly. And so they had better fitness levels. Then this led to another thing we did in the Russian Federation several years ago, where we had an opportunity to get kind of a claim on the label of the juice there as well, and did a study with people who were obese. Now, in this study, we had everybody was put on a low calorie and exercise, low calorie diet and some exercise regimen that they all standardized. And then we had them, some drink Tishanoni juice and some didn't, and followed them for the first 3 weeks in the clinic, and everybody lost weight as expected. Okay, but then when they sent them home for the next 3 weeks, what happened was those who did not drink Tishanoni juice started to regain their weight. Those who drank Tishanoni juice continued to lose the weight. Now, there were some other things that we measured there, which were the lean muscle mass included, and there was also some heart, some blood lipids and other things that were improved by Tishanoni juice as well, just as they were with the smokers. But what we saw is that the muscle mass was preserved better when they drank Tishanoni juice than if they didn't have it. Now, when you lose weight, you're not only going to lose fat, you're going to lose some muscle mass. That's just going to happen when you're cutting calories a lot. And the problem with that is that if you're not doing something to deliberately build the muscle up, you're going to rebound and put weight back on, because the muscles actually burn a lot of calories and help you stay leaner, thinner. And the Tishanoni juice, though, was actually helping preserve that muscle mass. So the loss of muscle was not as severe with the Tishanoni juice group, and that was the difference. So again, that group at the University of Harcourt found that out early on, and it helps explain what we see in this trial here. Now, there's something called advanced glycation end products. Let's see if we're jumping ahead. I guess there's something called advanced glycation end products. Now, if you eat sugar, you eat a lot of sugar, that excess sugar, will sometimes be converted to fat, and sometimes it'll be converted to things called, eventually converted to things called advanced glycation end products. And they're called, some people call them sugar toxins or glycotoxins. Basically, they're the things that when you eat too much sugar, there's a lot of health problems long-term. Diabetics experience a number of things that can be hard on the body. That's because of these advanced glycation end products. So there was a study done in Japan with 3,913 Japanese people at 10 different cities around Japan. And we had a way of measuring advanced glycation end products in their body. And then we interviewed them and asked about their intake of iridoids, which would be primarily from NONI, of course, NONI products. And then we had a group of people that didn't eat any iridoids because they weren't drinking NONI juice, and calculated the advanced glycation end product levels versus the iridoid intake. And what we found is that as people consumed more iridoids or drank more NONI, their advanced glycation end product levels were lower, and especially by age, because it tends to increase as you get older, the advanced glycation end product levels. But NONI juice was helping control those. And so that would have long-term health benefits, of course, and it's helping slow that conversion of those sugars into advanced glycation end products, and thereby protecting those tissues that would be a target of those glycation end products. So that might be a little technical, I understand, but there's, there might be discussion for later, another time, to get a little more into this. But a big impact here, actually, and there's almost 4,000 people in that study. Now, interesting one is, believe it or not, somebody in Germany at the University of Hamburg thought it would be interesting to see if Tishanoni juice helped decrease gingivitis symptoms, the bleeding of the gums and the inflammation of the gums. And that's based on actually some traditional uses of NONI fruit in the Pacific Islands, where they found that it helped with dental health, basically oral care and gum problems. And so they found that it actually decreased the symptoms when they would swish the Tishanoni juice around and drink it. And that's published in a journal called Modern Research in Inflammation. Now, there was some hypertension studies done. This one is dietary related, lifestyle related hypertension. This didn't involve people with what we call primary hypertension. This one is due to lifestyle factors. And but again, small study, but we found that people drinking 4 ounces, which would be about 120 milliliters of tisha noni juice per day, saw a decrease, especially in their systolic blood pressure. And this was done at Brigham Young University, Hawaii. And same thing with cholesterol in non-smokers. Remember, I did this, explain the study before with cholesterol levels in smokers. Getting ahead of myself here. We did a study just, okay, what does this do to people who aren't heavy cigarette smokers, and they might have a little, normal cholesterol levels? What happens? And essentially we found, just to demonstrate, just as we did in that earlier safety study, that it did not have a significant impact on those people that were already in the normal healthy range. There's this acceptable range that's healthy. But those people who might have been slightly above, it had a slight effect in bringing it down closer to the normal range. So again, that adaptogenic effect that I've talked about earlier. A couple more slides to go through here. Again, I'm feeding you with what we say here in the States, feeding you with a fire hose, or making you drink from a fire hose, giving you a lot to absorb. This study was done at the University of Hamburg in Germany. And this study went for about 2 months, and they had people drinking tisha noni juice, and they measured their HbA1c. That's the glycosylated hemoglobin. That's a measure, for long-term control of blood sugar levels. So if you're going to be diagnosed as a diabetic, it's these HbA1c, or the A1C levels, as we often call them for short. They're going to be elevated, and that's going to be your diagnosis. And so the lower it is, the better you are at controlling your blood sugar levels. What they found is that drinking tisha noni juice helped bring those A1C levels down over that 2-month period, as well as the morning blood sugar levels, kind of that fasting blood sugar levels in the morning the trend was to decline over time when they were drinking tisha noni juice. And they drank it at an amount that was equivalent to 1 milliliter per kilogram. So, if you were a 70 kilogram person, it would be 70 milliliters. If you're bigger, you're a 100 kilogram person, it'll be 100 milliliters. But again, some benefits we saw earlier when I mentioned the advanced glycation end products with the almost 4,000 people in Japan. This matches up, this data matches up in 2 different groups of people. Now, there's a couple other things. We did a survey of people in Europe to see what they thought the benefits were or felt the benefits were. This one involved just over 1,700 people. The most common benefits they said they experienced were more energy. 39% of the people said they've responded with that. Now, this doesn't mean that only 39% people felt that and nothing else. This is just the responses, most common responses, and they would have multiple ones. So for instance, of the 39% of those people, they could have all responded with that 20% saying that they felt they had a better overall feeling. But this is just the most common when they selected how they felt. This is how this resulted here. So 39% of them said they felt they had more energy. 20 said they felt overall better feeling. I guess a nondescript, just feel better. Decrease in pain was 17%. And these people may have been drinking tisha noni juice for who knows what different reasons, but these were what they were experiencing. Fewer infections and so forth. Now, there was a study we did in the United States that was a little more controlled, and this involved a group of people that had never had tisha noni juice before. And this was 319 people participated in this one. We asked them to drink a half a cup per day, and then we had them do that for 90 days. And we collected information from them on, the beginning and after 30 days and 60 days and 90 days. And here's just kind of a brief description of some of the main points there. 73% said they felt better in general after 30 days. And that went to 83% after 90 days. Now, these were subjects, the people we enrolled in this study were adults who had some kind of chronic health condition, but they weren't taking medication or some treatment for it. So either it was sort of a borderline condition, or they didn't want to, take medication for it. They weren't there yet. They hadn't felt like they needed it yet, but they knew there was a problem, but they were enrolled. So they had various issues, some kind of chronic health condition, whether that's high blood pressure or maybe some borderline diabetes, or who knows what it would be, some joint pain problem. We don't know, well, we do know because we have the data, but didn't describe it in this slide. But more than 80% of them said they felt better in general after 90 days. And then 68% said they felt stronger. They just felt stronger and better and healthier. Maybe that's related to not only just feeling good in general, but maybe again, back to that information that we got from the study done at the University of Port Harcourt. And 67% said they had fewer health challenges after 90 days. And 74% said it makes them feel better than other health supplements they have tried. So again, we had the clinical trials with the smokers that compared tea noni juice against a fruit juice placebo, and then the runner study also with that. And then we have this study that when they asked them, you've tried a bunch of supplements, how does this make you feel compared to those other ones? And 74% said it makes them feel better. So in the old, and years ago, we had this saying, this marketing phrase, it was the one good thing. Tea noni juice was the one good thing. And that was the explanation was, is that if there's one good thing you can do for your health, try tea noni juice. It's still the one good thing. Again, I show you the two labels here. The one with the big gentleman blowing the conch shell, and then there's a smaller version of them, which you may or may not be able to tell there, but it's the same, whatever the design on the label is, it's the same product inside. We still test every batch. It's still the one good thing. So that's quite a lot there. So I'm going to stop sharing, Nick, and then we'll go take a look at those questions then. So again, I gave you a ton of information, and hopefully you go read some of that, and that I gave you the link to in that paper. And the main take home though is tea noni juice is good for your health. It's good for a lot of different things. And we've seen that throughout the world with various studies across the globe.
So we have a lot of questions, and thank you so much, Brett. Very, very knowledgeable, and it's an amazing product. This, I mean, it's everything in a bottle, as they say, right? So
yeah,
we have a lot of questions here. I don't think we can get to all of them. Yolandé, you can scout through a lot of the questions here, but I just want to go through some of the. We'll go random questions here and see what we can get here. Let's just see.
Okay.
Let's see.
Listen, Brett, what an incredible Zoom, and it is so amazing. And it's like reading the questions as well, and you go, what does it not work for? Because there's so many things. It's like a miracle product. I was sitting thinking, you know, maybe I should go pour myself a bigger glass of noni. But it is insane. Yeah, Nick, there's quite a lot of questions. I know that some of the questions was also answered during the trials that was done. But we can, if anyone is comfortable enough to unmute themselves and ask a question to Brett, feel free to do so. You can just unmute yourself and ask a question. I'm pretty sure Brett is also scanning through the questions. There is quite a lot. So it's so difficult to put the pressure on me to choose the questions to ask.
Let me ask you one. Is noni like medicine to use for relief of arthritis?
So I'm going to be careful when I answer that one. So again, I said it's not medicine, but we've done the studies with arthritis patients, right? And the data said it helped. What I want to say though is there's going to be, I know some of the questions are going to be related to, will it help with this condition or this condition or this condition? And legally, I cannot represent the company and say this is an approved medication for those conditions, right? I showed you all the research, showed you the benefits. What I would recommend you do is you give it a try. You know, if you're using some treatment right now, you can use them together and see how it does for you. If you're not taking something, you know, give it a try and see how it helps you. Now, you mentioned arthritis. Well, in the studies, you know, we have a lot of people benefiting. Now, I do want to give you a warning, though, to help manage expectations, that in these studies, you know, remember I showed you like 75% people felt better, 83% better, you know, these averages, the improvement, and there's always these one or two people who don't respond, right? That's with every medication. That's with, you know, if you know people, if you've been around long enough, you've known friends and family who might have some chronic health condition and they're given a medication that is approved to help with that. You know, the insurance will cover it, or the government will pay for it, or, you know, it's recommended by the medical associations of the countries you live in. But they're never 100% effective, right? They might help 75% of the people or 50%. There's always one or two who don't seem to benefit for that specific condition. So I'm not saying that Tisha Noni juice isn't going to help you, but I'm just helping manage expectation. If you give this product to somebody and it doesn't help them, doesn't seem to help them, don't lose heart over that, because there's always going to be somebody who doesn't seem to respond. That's why in these clinical trials, we try to use these larger numbers like we did with the smokers. And then we go to Japan and, you know, almost 4,000 people. You're trying to get an idea of what's typically going to happen. And so to answer those questions will help with this condition. I would say, you know, you can ask specifically about them. You can send some emails if you have further questions, but, you know, it's there to support the body and help strengthen the body, right? And provide it with what it needs to operate optimally. And it does it in a very effective fashion in many instances. So add it to what you're doing and then see how you feel and then go from there. Okay.
And Brett, what would you say? Will it help with all the menopause symptoms in women with HRT? Also with men, ladies' libido?
So this is a good question. So there's another product called Renew that we have, and I don't know when that's going into South Africa, but it's based on NONI and it helps with growth hormone, you know, helping increase that to younger levels. There were some studies. One I didn't discuss here was actually one we did with postmenopausal women and again, the University of Illinois, where we had them drink Tisha Noni juice for a few months and measured, you know, took some measurements of, you know, mood, but also actually measured bone resorption did an analysis for how well they were remineralizing their bones, you know. So as you go through menopause, the bones become more brittle, you know, there's changes that happen. That's where osteoarthritis develops, and it had an effect at reducing that was going on. So I don't know if I could say it undoes menopause. I don't know if women have gone through that one to go through it again, you know, but it can help with some of those. We have some data to say it should help to some degree, but how much I'm not ready to go for, you know, to explain.
And Brett, anxiety, depression, there's another one. Yeah, can you drink chemotherapy?
Yeah, so we have some. If somebody's going through treatment for that, I'd, you know, stick with that. Don't drop that and then go to Tisha Noni juice, you know, and replace it right away. But what I will tell you is that in some of these studies that I didn't get into the weeds with all that, you know, and explaining all the details, but those quality of life factors that we measured, that included things like anxiety and mood and depression. And we saw beneficial effects from Tisha Noni juice in those. Now, some of those are hard to sift out a little bit. You know, again, in menopausal, postmenopausal women, we saw that effect. In osteoarthritis patients, we've seen it. There's been other studies with some cancer patients that there are benefits. How much of that is symptoms to feel better, so they are feeling, you know, they improve so they feel better, and how much of that is an effect on, you know, the brain chemistry that's involved in this. So we have done work in that area, but there's a lot more to do. But we have done work in that area that shows promise. So I would certainly say add it to what you're doing. And there's some papers published available. You can go find them online that talk about that.
Absolutely amazing to think that soon we'll have this golden product in our hands in South Africa. So it's very exciting. But Brett, I've got a question from my side, and I know with New Age, we are not allowed to treat, diagnose, or cure anyone with our product. But what is the biggest miracle you've seen by using the product Noni in your journey with people that got into contact with that? What was your biggest, like, wow moment?
Oh, you mean as far as like somebody's personal experience?
Yeah.
Well, that's hard to say. There's been quite a number. There's been some people with cancer that have seemed to benefit nicely from that, and others. Then I'm not going to say that's going to be everybody, right? But and it didn't necessarily make it go away. You know, it just prolonged the life expectancy, and we've seen that in several different there was a clinical trial that showed that, and there was some case reports that showed that. And so I don't want to give anybody false hope there, but that was pretty dramatic. The effects on pain with these osteoarthritis patients, that's been pretty good. So I'm going to talk as a toxicologist, okay, pharmacology, toxicology. This was not a symptom that somebody could tell, but again, those smoker studies, when I saw what it did for protecting the DNA. So again, I tried to not get into all the gory details of what happens when DNA is damaged and it has to be repaired. There's a lot of problems that develop, okay, when that's happening, if it's damaged at too high a rate, which cigarette smoke does. I think most people understand in their mind what cigarette smoking does, right? So they know enough people that it causes all kinds of problems. But when I saw how Noni juice could still reduce DNA damage by half while they continued to smoke, that was almost miraculous to me. And then when I did the cell studies I talked about, where I took them and exposed them to this carcinogen and then used the iridoids first, then let them absorb, the cells absorb the iridoids first, and then compared the results and saw that almost complete protection. That was pretty wow moment for me. And again, that wasn't a personal experience, but that was just from the scientists seeing this going on in controlled conditions. And I thought, this is amazing stuff. That was pretty cool. That was one of the, so I've been here, like I said, a long time now. And it's those kinds of experiences that have kept me so long working on this, and I've had opportunities to go other places. And the main thing is okay, you don't have Noni juice. That's the thing is, I don't want to go somewhere else and work on something inferior to what I'm doing right now and trying to help promote, because I think it's so strong. And that was just amazing to me, that data. And again, that's something that's been repeated elsewhere too. I mean, we've done it with the humans, the human trials, and I know other groups have tried it with later on in different experimental systems, and they find the same thing. And it's really amazing that way. Now, I've had somebody ask me once on this, well, I don't smoke, so what does that mean to me? Well, you live in a city probably, right? A lot of us do. So there are all these things in the air, that the exhaust from the cars and from the factories and everything else that's in the air. And it's a lot of those compounds, those PAHs, the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, maybe you've heard that term before. They're in the air floating around at a lower concentration. Now, they're maybe not going to damage you as fast as the cigarette smoke, but it's still there. So imagine if Noni juice can benefit you with that high concentration of all those pollutants, what will it do for you if it's a lower concentration over time? It just helps your body that way. So that's kind of the biggest thing. One of the biggest wow things for me right there is just how it can help protect your body against our modern environment, basically.
Wow.
It's so interesting to listen to someone who's got such a big passion for it, and it just gives us who will be the resellers of this product that hope, and that's something that you can't explain to other people. And I always say that I'm so proud to be affiliated with New Age, because what you are saying, it's the same as what Diana Latson is always speaking about with all our products. And that is just something that you can't explain to someone if they haven't experienced it. But Brett, I want to ask you another question. You did mention that 1 ml to a kilogram for diabetic people if you drink your Tahitian Noni. Would you recommend that you should drink in general that, do that ratio? Or would you say that you drink a glass of Noni a day? So glass could be 330 ml, if I'm correct. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, what is your recommendation?
So I would start out by saying, so if you have diabetes, you're going to count your carbohydrates, right? You're going to watch how much am I taking at every meal or throughout the day. You're watching that amount. So if you just assume that Noni juice fits into the regular mold of fruit juice, how much fruit juice do you drink, or how much fruit do you eat in a day? how much do you think you can handle? You might want to swap some of that out with tea noni juice. So that's what I'd say first and foremost. If people aren't watching that and they're not really controlling it, which some might, I'd say start out with the 1 ounce, the 30 milliliter serving. See how you do. If you're, I don't know if you're watching your blood glucose levels or not, but drink it, see how you do. Maybe you go a little more or spread it throughout the day. The main thing is just be smart about it, you know, and watch how you can, how your body responds. So you might need to do a little experimentation, start small and then get a little more as you see benefits coming. This group that did it at the University of Hamburg had done some of this work before and kind of worked these things out ahead of time on the amounts to use. So you can try that, but I would say because of individual variation, you know, start a little small, see how you do, and then go up. But again, it's you know, how much tea noni juice can you drink per day if you're diabetic? Well, how many potato chip crisps did you eat? You know, or how much slices of bread did you eat? You know, did you have another fruit? You know, they have to work all these things in and account for that. So there's in a 30 ml serving, there'll only be a couple grams of sugar in tea noni juice. So that's what they should plan on.
So I think there's 3 hands that are risen there that have put their hands up there, Yolandé. I think we end up with these 3, and then we give the prizes away because we're going miles over the time here, and I'm sure people need to go.
I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I know it's late in South Africa.
Well, everybody else is, nobody's left. Okay,
I've got so many questions running through my head.
So I think Sarah Ryan's got her hand up. Sarah, if you want to unmute and just ask your question there from Dubai.
Yeah, and I'm looking at her written question too here, so I hope it's the same one.
Hi, Brett. Thank you so much for tonight. It's been absolutely amazing. So I've just got a question about autoimmune diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my friends and a lot of people who I've recently been in contact with have got autoimmune. So would you recommend that I could talk to them about taking the Tahitian noni, even though some of them are on medication with regard to their autoimmune diseases?
I would, because even though we talk about it boosting the immune system, it doesn't do that wholesale. The immune system is pretty complex, right? And there's sometimes it's a little seesaw effect. One part of the immune system is increased and it helps suppress the other. So there's a balance going on. With noni, it improves that part of the immune system that's protecting it against these, like I mentioned, the bacteria or virus or something, these parts. But the autoimmune responses, so interesting enough, with noni, it helps. A lot of that's the inflammation part and some of the recognition of self part, that's a little off base. And noni seems to tamp that down. So we actually have enough data. And some of that example would be rheumatoid arthritis, where we see benefits, which is an autoimmune problem. People who have had lupus, another one example. So I would say try it out. Again, you can go small and see how they do. But another one was, I actually wrote a paper on Crohn's disease and saw benefits there when somebody's drinking tea noni juice, which, there's inflammation, there's some autoimmune components there as well, and saw benefits there. So I'd certainly recommend that. But before I go away from Sarah's question, there was just one more where she asked a question that many people want to know about. Does this growing of noni fruit deplete the soil in French Polynesia? It does not. It grows year round. A lot of the fruit is allowed to fall because we can't harvest it all, and it doesn't impact the soil that way. So, and then the soil is pretty rich, and it's actually a very clean, regenerative agricultural crop and product and way we do things there. It's harvested by hand and so forth. So it's very clean that way. And we've been recognized for that in the past. So now there's another, we'll go to the next question, that the other hand that was up.
Brett, do you perhaps know the price?
For South Africa?
Yeah, more or less.
I don't know.
In dollars.
And well, the price has changed a little bit recently because of so for years and years and years, the retail price was about $40 US a bottle, since 1996. I think that's gone up recently because everything else in the world has gone up too, but I don't know how much exactly. So if I'd known I was going to be asked about pricing, I would have, that's more of the marketing person. My job Yeah. So my main thing is it worth paying for? And that's kind of what we do the research is we want to make sure nobody's getting fleeced, right? And I'm pretty tight with my own money, and I expect everybody else to be the same. And I want to, I don't want garbage. I'm not going to support garbage. And so that's the main thing is if I don't feel like I'm going to pay for that stuff, then I'm not going to promote it. So
expiry, does it expire?
Okay, so remember that story I told about the 9-year-old bottle?
Yeah.
So we have the official expiration date of 2 years. If you have a bottle that's older than 2 years, and then you're going to send me an email saying it's okay. And I said, if it's never been opened before, you're probably fine to drink it. I've got old stuff. So the main phytonutrients in there, the iridoids, they're robust. They're still there. There's from a microbial standpoint, you're worried if there's anything growing in there that shouldn't be growing in there. We've not found it. In fact, there's some stuff we did with TNJ noni juice where we just had bottles open and sitting out on the shelf for a long time. And those pathogenic microorganisms have a hard time growing in the noni juice because it kind of kills them. And I've published data on that too. It's one of the traditional uses when people would have an open wound that sometimes squeeze noni juice in there. Now it would sting like the dickens, but it helps clean that wound out. So there's some natural properties to the noni juice there. So expiration date 2 years. It's good all the way through the 2 years and likely beyond.
Awesome. Anything from you, Yolandé? Okay, Yolandé, we need to choose the winners. We need to choose the winners. Brett, you're going to choose the winners. We're not choosing. We're throwing you in the deep end. So you're
gonna have 3 happy people, 3 happy people, right?
Pick
happy
3
with
names.
me,
Just pick 3 names from the participants. Click on participants and pick 3 names.
Okay, I got to go through all of these here and see who we have. Now I don't know.
And they have to be in South Africa. Sorry, guys. That's just a rule. It has to be South African, unfortunately, because to get it to wherever, if it's going to go out of here, it's going to be a problem. So rather
that's going to be, so I can't tell who.
I'll tell you.
Here, why don't you scroll and I'll tell you stop, and then you get on a name, and then. Okay, stop. Who's that?
This one.
Go.
Can you see?
Who did you go?
Here, let me, I lost my listing. Let me go back to the other view here, gallery view again. Okay, so I'm not sure who you stopped on there. So I can see.
I stopped on Mimsi Tretta.
Okay, there you go.
Mimsi is unfortunately in Namibia. That is a bad one, Nick.
Okay.
Okay, what about the one just to the right of?
What's the name?
Corrine?
Corrine
Okay,
Hector.
there you go.
Yeah, that one? Corrine Hector?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Corrine Hector, can you believe it? That's Corlia. That's amazing. Congratulations, Corlia. And I know that is super awesome. Corine, dank jy. Baie geluk.
Dankie Tannie.
Oh, dit is awesome.
Right, I'm going.
Okay. The next one, let's see.
Let's see, you gotta scroll. I guess I'll tell you when to stop.
Can you see me scrolling?
Kind of not, but see here. I have a question. Who is Will Prince? Is he in? Are you in South Africa, Will?
Yes, he is.
Will Prince. What do you think? I see I see the Golden Gate Bridge behind Will Prince now. Okay.
Will Prince, are you in South Africa? Can't hear you. You muted.
Okay.
I don't know if Will Prince, I don't know.
I don't think.
Okay. We'll go through the scroll activity again there here. So I'm going to kind of, you still scrolling?
Yeah.
Okay. Who did you just stop on?
Talene.
Okay.
Talene.
Where's Talene?
Congratulations, Talene. Dit is awesome.
Baie dankie julle, dankie. Ek het dit nodig.
Dit is so great. I love it.
She needs it, she said. Good.
Baie dankie.
Well done.
Okay.
Then.
All right, then keep scrolling there and we'll see who we get off on. Okay, not quite sure where you are, but how about now? Stop now.
Maria Daneka.
Maria, also my girl. She's a Bloom girl. That is amazing. So we've got 3 awesome winners, Green, Dalian, and Maria. Thank you so much.
Are they all in bloom, Yolandé?
They are.
Okay, cool.
So that was not that wasn't designed that way. So
No.
it's feeling a little, yeah.
It was neutral. Brett, I can't thank you enough. You know what? You've given us all your time. We are so humbled. Thank you very much. It's been an amazing call. I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. I'm sure it was worth the time that we all were on this call. Thank you so much for all of you for staying on. I hope everybody got knowledge out of it. Yolandé, your final words.
I just want to say thank you so much. Tonight, it didn't even feel like an hour and a half. And it was super amazing to see all the studies that you've done, because the proof is in the pudding. Thank you so much for your knowledge and your passion for the brand and the product. We are honored to share a screen and a business with you. And it's just amazing to link up with people who's got just so much respect for what they're working with. So from my side, Nick, it's always so awesome for me to connect with you and to do business and life with you, my friend. Dis baie lekker vir almal op die Zoom. South Africa, this product is coming. It's coming and it's going to change.
It's coming 6 weeks time. Nigeria is going to have it too. We're very excited. Brett, you want to say something in closing?
Drink your noni. That's it. So.
That's it. Nothing more.
Love
nothing.
it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Right,
enjoy yourselves. Thank
Okay.
you for attending. Brett, thank you again. And I'll get.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
You can unmute and say good night.
Goodbye, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks so much. It was an awesome call. Thank you.